Welcome back to Magic Hour Podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Taylor Paige.
And this is Claire. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
I was just telling Claire before we hit record, I punched myself in the face with my headset and it immediately made me fly into a rage. And then I had to calm myself down so I can talk about clairsentience today.
We're starting off strong, you guys.
I know. Right now, my clairsentience is telling me I have some deeper things to look at around rage.
Don't we all?
Yeah. But before we get into the topic today, I just wanted to share a sweet little thing that came through to me. I was recording Sitting with Spirit for 2 episodes ago last night. And I was like, this is too much to also share in Sitting with Spirit. So I felt really called to share it in this episode. And you know how iPhones have featured photos that show you carousels of like just different times and different years and different memories. I was thinking, what a beautiful exercise of self-love. I think a big theme of season 3 that Claire and I have been hitting on in a lot of the episodes is like loving ourselves as different versions and different versions of self, leading us to who we're becoming and who we are now. And I was like, how beautiful would it be to just sit with whatever featured photos of us come up in whatever years and whatever situations in whatever locations or whoever we're with and write thank you notes to those versions of self. Because if you think about it, you go back to your memories and it's like, oh my gosh, I remember what I was dealing with at that time. I remember how I was feeling. I remember what was triggering me. And it's because of those versions of self that we've come so far into this version of self, and we couldn't have done it without them. And so just had this idea of a little ritual of self-love, of just writing love notes and thank you notes to past versions of self for the work that they've done, for the lessons that they've learned, for the feats they've overcome. And I think it's just a really powerful practice because then it shows us how everything we're doing now, a future version of self, is also thanking us for. And I thought that's such a good way to use the featured photos.
I love that. That's such a cute idea. I feel like we see them and we're like, oh, cute time, but we kind of overlook all those deeper layers of what was going on. And I think when we move past stuff, we can kind of forget what we were going through or what we moved through. And it's so beautiful to honor what we experienced and how it shaped us and how we stepped up to the challenge of it. I had this acting teacher who once said to me, she's like, sometimes life feels so overwhelming, but really you just show up and you do the thing and you show up to the next thing and you do that thing. And it's kind of beautiful to look back and see all the ways that we've done that, all the times that we like faced that challenge or faced that moment and really honoring ourselves and thanking ourselves. I think that's so beautiful. I'm going to try that.
Yeah. And, the process of becoming takes time. And it's a normal part of the process to lose our way at times, to struggle at times, and just acknowledging that with compassion and love and writing love notes to ourselves and thank you notes to ourselves, I think might shift something or heal something or release something or forgive something or even just celebrate something. Like when we think about what we celebrate and milestones, it's always like tangible external things. But what if we rewired ourselves for healing milestones or empowerment milestones or self-love milestones the same way?
That's so true. And I feel like we so often forget so many of those moments, So beautiful to look back and remember all the richness of each moment and, to love ourselves again for everything that we were in that moment and everything we worked through. It's like another way to love yourself, another way to show up for yourself and past versions of yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, going into the topic today of clairsentience, I really feel like this is a timely topic because we are in this moment where we are collectively navigating so much intensity and heaviness. And I don't think that intensity and heaviness is new on planet Earth. I think our connection, social media, our awareness of it is new in a way. Like we used to in the past before social media, just be in our own little community bubbles without as much awareness of what was happening. And now we're faced with the shadow of collective systems of oppression in such a real way. And I really think that's like a homework assignment for how our generations of consciousness are progressing to hold it. And I think that we're living through really Plutonian times, which Pluto's main lesson is how bad does it have to get before you let it go? And I think Pluto in Aquarius is exposing the shadows of collective systems of injustice and all of these things. And so, how this ties into clairsentience is that this is bringing up a lot of emotions for us and a lot of feelings for us. And clairsentience is psychic feeling. And I just wanted to start with this little download before I get into the mechanics of clairsentience, because I think that we run from our feelings so much. We're told not to feel, we're told our feelings are too much. And there's a difference between clairsentience, which I will call capital F feeling, and emotional messengers that aren't necessarily facts or truth, but have important information for us on our healing journey, which is like lowercase f feeling. And I think that right now we're in this complicated web of both lowercase and uppercase f. And when we don't have the practice of tuning in and listening to our emotions, and our feelings, but instead let them pull our puppet strings, I think that's what we're seeing a lot of right now in the collective is like activated people that are attacking each other. We're like more divided than ever. And I think if we can get in the practice of like detangling all of the feelings, both lowercase and uppercase, that's when we get to how we can actually be of service in this time. That is how love wins through us. That's how we get to the depth, the solution, the way forward, the takeaway. So I feel like this message is coming at a really important time where we can't ignore our clairsentience anymore, because our clairsentience is just a part of being human. Every single person is clairsentient. I think for most people, it's our primary clair that comes online first, and it connects us into what feels good, what doesn't. And what is so powerful about clairsentience is that it operates outside the realm of story. And that is why, to me, it is the most important and powerful clair. Because hearing, even knowing sometimes, listening, the imagination muscle and the intuition muscle are like one and the same. Intuition for our clairaudience, they come in through our imagination muscles. So it's easy then to be like, project a meaning onto that, to plug it into a fantasy, have it be a story. Whereas you can't do that with clairsentience. Clairsentience exists not in the imagination, but the body. So clairsentience is really an important foundation because it's telling us something isn't right, something's off. It's an invitation to a deeper emotional and felt experience that our mind can't hijack to suit the narrative that we feel most comfortable in.
That makes sense. And I'm excited to explore this more because, I'm such a big feeler. And I feel like for me, sometimes there is such a story connected to my feeling experience. And I feel like that's probably the lowercase f feeling experience. So I'm excited to dive into that a little bit more and understand kind of the nuance there because we are feeling beings. And I think, a lot of us have felt pressured to shut that down or feel so much shame around it, which is also a feeling, shame. And I think we've even like compartmentalized feeling. I feel like culturally we've decided that anger is not a feeling or an emotion, even though it obviously is. And shame is not. I think we've really compartmentalized our experience as feeling beings. And of course, that's going to cut us off from ourselves. So the more we can understand the way our feelings inform our experience, I think, the more we can show up in alignment with our real truth.
Yeah. And how many of us had parents that are like, you're fine, you're okay. It's like from a very young age, we are taught to skip right to being okay, even if we're not. And that is a big intuitive block for later in life because we're gaslit out of our own truth, and that disconnects us from our intuition. So, clairsentience, as I said before, is psychic feeling. And psychic feeling is sort of the foundation and the through line for all other psychic senses. And I think that like clairvoyance and clairaudience, seeing and hearing, are the two that Hollywood loves the most because it's like I'm seeing a vision, I'm hearing exactly what's going to happen. It's like we glamorize those two. But those two without feeling can get so lost in a story and a cloud of the mind, and feeling is what plugs them in so you know that you're connected and getting that sensory information feeding the feeling. So a way to explain it is that And I've said this before, that all intuitive information comes with a feeling, and that feeling is never fear, dysregulation. It's always purposeful, powerful, solution oriented, regulating, inspiring. It can feel urgent. Those are all feelings that come with clairsentience. And so, how clairsentience differs from lowercase f is lowercase f are emotional messengers that are getting our attention, who basically are also giving us really valuable information to connect to our truth. Feelings and emotional messengers, their whole thing is helping us understand how we really feel and what our real truth is. Whereas clairsentience is our higher self attuning us and sensitizing us to what a full body yes feels like, to when we're out of resonance, to when intuitive information comes in. It helps us understand its intuitive information. And it's basically this felt experience of understanding the higher nature of consciousness and the truth of higher consciousness, whereas lowercase feelings are the truth of our ego, our human experience, our story of self. And the two are both very valuable and interwoven together. And so, something that this mediumship teacher, I want to say his name is Stephen Henneman, but I'm not exactly sure. It might be Herman, Stephen Herman. I took a clairvoyance workshop with him, and I think he's a lovely person and a great teacher and a powerful medium. I have read part of one of his books, and I don't agree with everything he believes, but that's okay. I just want to say, because sometimes when I say things on the podcast, you guys like buy the book and read the thing, and you're like, that's not what you teach. And I'm like, just because I agree with some things of some people doesn't mean I'm like endorsing them or whatever. Whoever you resonate with is great, but I don't resonate with everything that he teaches about spirit. But something that he taught that I really liked was, when you think of psychic information and say you're watching a movie and you're just seeing flashes of images through the movie, or say that you're just hearing clips of words throughout the scenes, that wouldn't really paint a full picture of what the story of the movie was or what the characters were doing. You could misinterpret that. You could project your own experiences onto those images. You could stereotype, whatever it is. But if you were plugged into the feeling of the movie, you would get a lot more information about what the story's about, what the characters were doing, what the themes are, what the message or the takeaway is. And so often in mediumship, and I think clairsentience is really a big clair for angelic connection, because angels are so much about like the message and the feeling and what they want you to know. And I think where some mediums get caught up is they're extremely clairvoyant or clairaudient, and they're giving so much good evidence and detail about who the person was, but then they have a hard time bringing through the message of like why that person is here and what they want to say, because they're not as connected to the feeling. So it's really important to connect to the feeling as well.
That's so cool. And it made me think about something, or it made me connect something that I feel like I really experience when I watch movies. And I think we all do. It's like the sounds and the music literally create a feeling. And it's like the sounds aren't just there, they're there to lead us into a mood or a feeling. It's like that ominous music tells us information, right? It's not just music, it's like, uh oh, something's afoot, like they shouldn't go into the house. Or that, deep swell of music tells us that this character is deeply connected to this other character, or feeling passionately about their connection, or whatever, what have you. Like, I think that is such a interesting connection that I've never made, that I feel like applies to our sentience of like you said, the sound is there to communicate the feeling. It's not just like a sound that exists in isolation. And I feel like that's true in story too. It's like all of those tools, the picture, the sound, all of that, the knowing, all of that is there to communicate a feeling experience.
Yeah, that's so true. And the director, the songwriter, they're all crafting this intentionally for us to get the message of the movie. And you can think of your spirit guides and, your higher self doing the same exact thing. Like everything they show us is for a reason, and it's very intentional, and it's usually very layered. And so I think in a society that doesn't value feelings, that runs from feelings, this is not a sexy Claire. You know, people are like feeling like that's basic. I want to see, I want to know, I want to hear. But we're shooting ourselves in the foot in our intuitive development if we discard feeling, because feeling is everything. And like I said, everything else feeds the feeling. And so I think a common misconception is that there's like only so much you can really get from feeling. Like, oh, okay, I get it. This is a sad thing that I'm feeling. But that's a very surface level connection of clairsentience. Clairsentience is extremely detailed, and why it's the most powerful clair is not only because it keeps you connected to the flow and that you understand you are speaking to angels and spirit and your higher self and you're not off in imagination land, but it also can be developed to a way that you can see, hear, and know through feeling. So let me break this down. So, kind of like how blind people feel things with their hands, you can develop your clairsentience to a degree where you can like feel how the person you're connecting with in spirit, how they felt in their body. You can develop it to a degree where you can hear, like, how do I explain this? So sometimes like a spirit person will come through and I'm not hearing their laugh. I'm feeling the way their voice and their laugh filled the space. And I know that they would have been an extroverted person with a big personality. But how I'm getting that is I feel the way their laughter and boom of their voice fills the space. That's how you hear with feeling. You can literally like feel your way. You can use your hands. And when you're very connected to clairsentience, you can get to a place where you're like, okay, a perfect example is my mediumship mentor, Deborah, was like, I want you to use clairsentience to feel into what my uncle did for a living. I was connecting with her uncle in spirit, and my hands started making this motion. If you're not watching the recording, I'm kind of like making an oval with my hands. And I started doing this. And I was like, and then I got in my head and I was like, I don't know what this is. And she's like, he was a bus driver. It was like I was on a steering wheel and I just kept doing this. So clairsentience is so deep, and it's, to me, hand in hand with claircognizance, psychic knowing. Claircognizance is the most advanced clair because our mind is so busy and it's these flashes of knowing and it can be really hard to trust it. But when we feel, there is often a knowing that comes with the feeling, and developing our feeling develops our knowing. So it can be so, so powerful. And when you zoom in on the feeling, you're getting more knowing than you're giving yourself credit for if you zoom in. Because sometimes in our like intuitive development journey, we're like, what's next? What's the next message? But if we actually sit with the feeling of like, ooh, this person makes me really uncomfortable. And if we actually zoom in on that clairsentience of like what you're picking up on this person not being in resonance with you, and you're getting a clear feeling about that, there's often more layers of knowing to that feeling buried within that if you just sit with that feeling and know how to tease it out.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I feel like I've had that experience in this last year. There was someone I really was like out of resonance with. And it was interesting to sit with that feeling and see what came up underneath it of like, why am I feeling so out of resonance? Like, what is it? And sifting through kind of the information that came through. Also, it was interesting. It was like, as I sifted through the information, connecting to then the truth of that feeling of like, oh, I think it's this. They were very inconsiderate. So I was like, okay. And then connecting to that feeling of like inconsiderateness or not considering others and like what that does for me inside and how I struggle with that. Like, it just was interesting to compare or connect those two things. I don't even think I realized I was doing it, but as you're speaking now, I'm like, oh, I feel like I see what she's saying. Kind of exploring that feeling and then the knowing that comes with it, and then the feeling that comes with the knowing, and like kind of as they dance together.
And they all dance together. Like all of our clairs work in concert. But I think sometimes our ego is looking for the flashy clairs and misses like a whole treasure trove of intuitive information that we're actually getting. And so, how this connects into our self divination is that self divination is an inward spiral of heart listening, whereas divination for other people is like tuning into other people's energy, past loved ones, angels, whatever. So clairsentience is so important in our self-divination because, again, when we can be in this dysregulated, anxious place connected to our self-divination practice, we're like, show me a sign that I'm going to be a millionaire this year, like, whatever it is. We can be pulling cards ourselves and being like, that doesn't fit the story I wanted to hear. We can be so in this place where we're looking for certain things, we're attached to outcomes, or we're just asking about the same thing over and over and over again. And a blind spot is coming up of like what actually wants to be shared. And so, with self divination being an inward seeking spiral, clairsentience is everything, because when you go deep and you're like, what am I really feeling? Even how inspired writing sometimes starts with just journaling, and then inspired writing starts to take off. Just by sifting through our lowercase feelings, we start to get the uppercase feelings. It's like they work together as well. So, just like the imagination is the same muscle that the other clairs work through, the lowercase f feelings is the same muscles that clairsentience works through. And it's all about attuning ourselves to deep heart listening, to feeling our feelings, to being radically honest about our feelings, to going deeper within our knowing it within our feelings. And that starts to open your vessel up for more clairsentience. And you can just feel even like, ooh, clairsentience is also very layered because it can be your own higher self getting your attention. It can be you picking up on the environment that you're in. It can be you picking up on other people's energy. It can be you picking up on angels and guides. Clairsentience is the root of all intuitive information. And by attuning to it, it's like a safety thing too. It helps you just understand the energy of exactly where you are. And where stereotypes is like enemy of intuitive development. It's just a story that we're projecting because the mind feels so unsafe not knowing that it immediately is like, let me look at this person and create a story about them. And already you're out of intuitive information. Whereas you might go into a house that like looks dark and scary, and the mind is like, this is haunted, and these are the stories and the stereotypes. But maybe the feeling is like, no, I feel warm. I feel peaceful. I feel good here. And so the mind can lie to us so much, but if we're attuned to the feelings aren't facts, but feelings with a capital F can't lie to us.
Interesting. I mean, you kind of explained this a little bit, but I'd love to dive, and maybe you're already planning on this, but I'd love to dive deeper into kind of how to work through or decipher through the little f and the big F, because I feel like sometimes our little f feelings, or speaking for myself, sometimes my little f feelings are so intense and I know are not truth based. I mean, maybe that's the wrong way to say it because they are based in a truth for me, but I can feel that they are like a story or a particular lens with which I'm looking through it. Like, everything's ruined is one I love, and everything isn't ruined. But in that moment, that feels so true. And the feeling is so intense and heightened that no other truth really feels alive or real for me. And I can try and talk myself out of it, but the feeling is so big that it seems to sort of eclipse any other truth. And I know that that isn't my higher F happening there. I'm activated and my defenses are up and I'm feeling scared. So I think I'd love for you to speak more on just like navigating the nuance between the two, or like how to work through that dance when the little f feels like it's in total control.
Yeah. So I would say you sort of answered your own question in the question, in that that wasn't just your little F's, that was also a story and imagination coming in. So when our inner villain voice is like, say, for example, in your example, when you're like, it's all ruined and it's never going to be good enough or whatever the inner villain voice is saying, that's taken you out of feeling. That has taken you into story and imagination and what it means. Like, the feelings aren't about making meaning. They're about hearing ourselves, processing things, listening to ourselves, and then the brain tries to make a meaning out of it. And that's what's so important and powerful about feelings, is that it's not really about making a meaning. I mean, I know we will want to understand why we're getting the higher F and lower F feelings, but just in the present moment of sitting with them, it's just about looking at them. listening to them. And so I think that lower F feelings are showing us deeper places where we can heal, where we can relate more powerfully. And sometimes it's just honest, like, I'm disappointed right now. I feel icky right now. I'm frustrated right now. And that's the lowercase f that we're sitting with. But then the inner villain voice is like, and that means this about what your future is, about who you are, about what's coming. And that's not F territory anymore. That's the mind territory. So I think when you get into that, that is speaking over your higher F. The higher F is this deeper rooted feeling of like, I know I'm safe. I know it's going to be okay. I know I'm powerful. I know deep down that this is not my truth, that this is something I'm experiencing. And the more we listen to and get the messages from the little F's, the more the higher F feeling of power and peace and safety and security that is our real truth resonates with us.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I think in that way, we see that like the little f isn't something to run from. I think often we can feel a need to like reject that experience. Even in this conversation, I feel that getting activated of like, well, I should be in my higher F. And my lower F is almost like dirty or wrong or broken or, like in the way, what have you. But I think it is actually a pathway. It is an awareness that is needing to be heard and processed so that I can connect deeper to the higher F.
Yeah. And I think you just hit on such an important point that I'm so glad you brought up, which is naturally we put everything spiritual above being human. We are always indoctrinated into this system of like good versus bad judgment, hierarchical thinking, whereas little f is just as important as higher f. They're partners, they're married. We're both human and spirit. It's like one can't exist without the other because we're spirit having a human experience. And so little f is just as sacred as capital F, just as important, has just as many messages for us. And I think like on this path of spiritual reclamation and intuitive connection, the ego goes buck wild with this work. Like it really loves to like categorize things and make meaning. And if I was actually connected, then this is exactly what my life and my intuition would look like. So really look out for that because that's a great opportunity to tune into whatever F, lowercase or uppercase F, is getting your attention. Both Fs are valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. I love rephrasing it like that. And I think the more we can embrace all parts of that, the more fully we get to be ourselves versus feeling like, there's a right way or a wrong way to experience this wild ride that is life.
Absolutely. And so I invite everybody to sit with their feelings more, make space to feel. That's the natural way to heighten your clairsentience. And as you sit with your feelings, remember what they feel like because they're creating a language with your body. Like if you remember what disappointment feels like, joy feels like, whatever spectrum of emotion feels like, then when your higher F is speaking through you, you'll understand exactly where they're taking you. Like, especially if you're developing for professional readings or just reading for other people, when you are so in touch with what things feel like, you can get like, oh, that's what I felt like when I was disappointed in a family member doing this to me. And there's so much information from that feeling that then you can connect into what is coming through you. And so this is actually an important part of clairsentience is how you know it is clairsentience and not like an actual stomach ache or something like that is that as soon as you get the message from it, it goes away. So it's similar to lowercase f because also that's a messenger. It's just a little different because uppercase f is like instantaneous. As soon as you get the message, it stops. So like, say for example, I'm sitting in a client session. I'm like, that's so weird. I felt fine today. Like, why do I have such a bad headache? And then I'm like, I feel like I have a headache and I just feel all this tension in my head. And they're like, oh, I've been having a headache for the last 3 days. And as soon as I say it, it goes away. And that's how you know it's psychic feeling, not an actual experience that your body is having, because that's a layer of clairsentience too. That's very important for like medical intuitives and stuff is feeling other people's physical experience too. But nothing about psychic information is arbitrary. So if I'm feeling that headache, there's a reason and there's something they want to talk about and there's deeper emotional themes tied to it. So it's all very intricate. I think a really beautiful exercise that you can do at home to strengthen your clairsentience is take an oracle card or a tarot card deck. I think tarot might be a little bit better for the sake of this exercise because there's a higher spectrum of emotional experiences on the cards, and just shuffle the cards and don't make it about anything personal, what they want you to know. As soon as you add that layer, it makes it more difficult and challenging. Just sit with the cards and hold the card you pull and see what feeling comes up. Maybe you feel joy. Maybe you feel scared. Maybe you feel unsure. Maybe you feel tired. Like just feel. And then flip the card over and see if what you felt resonates with what the card's theme is about. And you'll start to play with it, can be fun with this sense of like matching your feeling. And it's almost like a flashcard exercise. And, maybe you'll also get images or words. Like it's not just restricted to feeling, but go in with the intention of feeling. Like, did my emotional felt experience match what is on the card, and watch what happens? Because when you do this exercise, your mind is going to come in and be like, I think it's happy. I think it should probably be sad. Like it will come in, and just the act of not knowing and being okay, being wrong, and just sitting in that space is going to trigger the F out of like all your defense systems. And that's part of the process of intuitive development, is like letting yourself be wrong and not making it mean something.
Yes, I struggle with that. I can already imagine myself doing it and being like, "What are you feeling? Are you feeling anything? Are you feeling something? I don't think I'm feeling anything." Because I feel that when I do my card pulls anyway, it's still very like wishy-washy for me, where I'm like, "I don't know. Is it this card? Isn't it this card?" And I think there's a lot of brain chatter going on about getting it right or needing to know. And I think letting myself just flow with whatever comes up and letting that be right or wrong or yeah.
Exactly. It's all just information for you. And when you get it, quote unquote, wrong, it's valuable information for where the block is, because I'm sure that's blocking us in our self divination practices and other areas too. It's all interconnected. It's so funny. And it's also very endearing to me, like as humans. As soon as we are in the realm of intuitive anything, spirit anything, we're like, we put this pressure on ourselves. It immediately shakes us up. And it was so funny because in round one of becoming the oracle, one of my mentees was like, when I'm just like walking around and in the world and I sit in the power, like I'm so connected. I see so many signs. I get all of these messages. I have such deep knowings that I can actually validate. I'm getting such good information. And then as soon as I'm in a reading with someone, it stops and I don't feel connected. And I was like, why do you think that is? And she was like, I'm not sure. It's really frustrating me and this and that. And I said, well, what changes energetically when you enter the space of a reading versus being out in the world in places you love, with people you love, doing things you love in your comfort zone? Your mind is getting involved. The reading is making it mean something about if you're connected or not, another person's judgment, fear of getting it wrong, putting pressure on yourself. That is the fastest way to come into the mind and out of the feeling. And that's why feeling is so important. Because when you're connected to the feeling and used to the feeling, you best believe when you're in a divination container, whether it's self divination or reading for another person, the mind is going to be talking and chattering and trying. And you know how to sink deeper into the feeling and trust the feeling and detangle the feeling. And that's how you actually connect with that intuitive information.
Yes. That makes so much sense, and I really resonate with that. I have a similar experience that when I perform. It's like the stakes are so high when you're performing or auditioning and you wanna do it well, and as soon as you're in here thinking about how you wanna do it right and do it well, you can feel how you disconnect from your power in it. And when you're just in the space connecting to yourself and the other person and the material, then you can enter into this beautiful flow state where the story is just pouring out of you and your humanity is just connecting with the other person's humanity. But as soon as you start to think about getting it right, or how is it looking, or is it good, or oh no, all of that completely zaps the like magic out of the moment.
1,000,000%. And all creation and all intuitive information exists in the present. And so does feeling. That is why it's so valuable. Whereas the mind is talking about what could happen, what did happen, what it means for the future. It takes us out of our connection because we're unanchored from the present moment. Whereas feelings are the experience that we're feeling right now. It's bringing us back to our physical body and our anchor. And that's why it's so, so important. Because a perfect example of this is I saw a mediumship reading, and the medium started out with just a bunch of evidence of how the person looked, what they were seeing, and how old the person was, and all of this stuff. And they started their reading like so quickly, jumped on, started being like da 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 da. The name starts with a C and a this and a that. And the person said, I have no idea who this is. And that person wasn't rooted into take a second. What are you feeling when you connect to this person? Does it feel like a grandmother? Does it feel like a relative? Does it feel like a friend? Do they feel happy? Do they feel supportive? Does it feel like maybe they had their own pain while they were here and it didn't make them the nicest person? When you start with the feeling, then you can start to build and get pieces of information that weave in with the feeling. But when you start with all of these disembodied imagination muscle pieces of evidence that are disconnected from feeling, and the person can't take it, then you're completely effed because you're not really in the fullest blend with the spirit person that you could be with, because that's a felt experience. And when you lose the link, you go back to what that person felt like and you reconnect with them. So, feeling anchors us into the present in such a powerful way. And the ego and the mind takes us out of the present. And that's what's so hard with intuitive development, because the imagination is the way that a lot of intuitive information comes through. It's the same muscle and mechanism of that like screen in our mind showing us things. And when it doesn't come with a feeling as well, that's how we know we've lost the plot.
That's so helpful. And it makes so much sense too, because of course we're feeling beings. So if you're connecting to another being, their energy would have a feeling with it. The way they felt about being a bus driver, the way they felt about their career. There's millions of bus drivers or hundreds of thousands of bus drivers, and each one will have a specific connection to their experience with it.
Yes.
That is information about this person. Was it their passion? Was it something they hated they had to do? Did they dream of something else? All of that is like so deeply rooted in the way they felt when they were driving the bus versus just like, I see a bus or whatever. So, yeah, it makes so much sense. And it's kind of counterintuitive because you think, like, on the one hand, oh, information, like facts are so tangible. But yeah, if they're not connected to the feeling experience, they can be kind of disembodied.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because like I've had so many veterans come through in my readings. And even just connecting with them clairsentiently, like some of them are like standing up tall and so proud to have been a veteran. Some of them felt lost or like they had to go on that path, but they didn't really know what lay ahead of them. Some of them are showing me that service, but then making me feel like it was the best time of their life. And now they're in a wheelchair and they think back to when they were so strong. It's like, that feeling is really everything, because when you're connected to the feeling, then say, for example, I see a Navy ship and I feel this sense of like pride in my work. And I know they were in the Navy and that meant a lot to them. And that's how it all works in concert. But if I was just like, now I see a Navy ship, that is not as rich and fleshed out and fulfilling. And it's very similar to like working with angels or spirit guides. They might be sending you a symbol or a message. And if we're not connected to the feeling, then we're like, that means this. But that's not actually what was said or sent unless you establish that ahead of time with them as like a sign. So when we get a symbol, it's like, oh, I'm seeing my symbol for career. And as I see that, I feel this restless sense of energy that is not feeling fulfilled right now. And when I explore that feeling, I go deeper into myself and it leads me to the next piece of information. And that's the way that psychic information works, is that when you get the message of one thing, it then leads you to the next thing, whether it's self divination or reading for someone else. So when we're plugged into the feeling, that's how we really get the message. The other stuff is like, I think hearing can definitely give you a message too, because some people who are really clairaudient can be like, they say that the hidden will is under the floorboard. Like they could like hear things like that.
That's so wild.
Yeah. And I think that there are people who are like true master clairvoyance and clairaudience that exist that probably defy a lot of what I'm saying. But that is like pretty rare to have those gifts to that level. And even for them, feeling is very important too. So, what I'm saying is that if you aren't connected to the feeling, then we're guessing at what the symbols and the words and the things mean instead of actually getting the true message underneath it.
Yeah, it's cool. I had a experience, I think it was last night, and I was having a difficult thought or a painful conclusion, and then I saw an angel number. And I usually feel like angel numbers for me are kind of an exclamation point on the moment. And often I feel like it's my angels being like, yes. It's like them cheering me on. So it was like an interesting moment because it was not a happy thought. It was like a dark thought. And then I felt this exclamation point of the angel number. But you've talked about this before too, where you speak about that the numbers or the signs aren't there to necessarily validate whatever thought we had, but as an opportunity to look into our deeper knowing. It's like I had that thought and I saw a sign. So, what do I really feel about it? Do I feel that that thought I was having is true and real? Do I feel that that's just me spinning off into stories and making it mean something? It was just a cool moment for me to check in deeper to my own knowing and intuition around the thought I was having. And I felt like that kind of is a similar thing to what you're saying of like the symbol itself isn't necessarily the information. Like the symbol is a gateway, a doorway for us to explore the feeling and the knowing that is present within that symbol. And I think that's when we can really unlock what we're experiencing versus being like, oh, I thought of this person and I saw a number, so it means we're meant to be. It's like, no, what do you really feel? Like really take a moment and explore the deeper feeling around it. And do you actually feel that this is in resonance or do you want it to be in resonance, but it isn't?
Is such a perfect example of everything we're talking about because when we are having a tough emotional experience and then we see an angel number, two things can be true at once. It can be your angels being like, magic exists and we're here, connect deeper with us. But then where do we deny our own emotional truth and experience for a fantasy of what we want that number to mean or that symbol to mean? And that is a disconnect from ourself. And where is that pattern happening in other areas of life where we're like waiting for confirmation outside instead of actually listening to the feelings and what's coming up inside? And so I think when we see angel numbers, it is our angels being like, connect with yourself deeper. We are here. We are supporting you. It's not all doom and gloom. We are here. When we disconnect from our emotional experience in favor of what the mind wants that symbol to mean, that is when we have disconnected from deeper intuitive information available to us because self divination requires deep inward spiraling of our consciousness.
Absolutely. And I think those are beautiful moments to feel supported in that as well of like, I see my angels supporting me through the difficult moment, through the difficult exploration.
You guys, I used to be the biggest scaredy cat in the world. I could not sleep with the lights off. Anytime I would sense the energy of a place, I would feel scared and unsettled and dysregulated. Anytime I would be away from home in a hotel room or traveling or a foreign space, I would feel at the whims of whatever presences I sensed. And it really took a long time for me to open up to my mediumship gifts, to embrace my connection and my heightened sensitivity, and to get the development level and education level to get to the place now where I feel so rooted in my truth and my power. And I understand that there is such deep truth that we are the most powerful form of creative energy on earth, and that spirit is all love. And I really want to help you. If you are afraid of spirit, it shows that you can sense spirit and that you have natural mediumship ability and sensitivity. And I am teaching a 3-part Healing the Spirit Wound workshop starting March 3rd. It will be March 3rd, 4th, and 11th at 5:30 Pacific time. But if you can't make it live, you can always catch the replay as well, and it will make no difference. And you can always email me if you can't make it live and ask a question about the material as well. I really want to help people deconstruct fearful narratives rooted in superstition, dogma, and misinformation, connect with spirit for themselves, and take your power back. This is going to be such a powerful, life changing offering. It's the first of its kind. I know that it's an idea that might even feel foreign to some, but if you have any itch inside of you to explore this, I highly, highly recommend it. It's everything I wish I would have known growing up. And I can't tell you what a life changing effect healing the spirit wound has had for me in every area of my life, because our relationship to spirit holds a mirror up to where we give our power away outside of that relationship as well. So I really hope you'll join. You can sign up at angelsandamethyst.com. Code 333 gives $33 off. And even if you're hearing this after the workshop has begun, you can join at any time. So I cannot wait to connect with you. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me at taylor@angelsandamethyst.com. Much love.
You've talked a lot about how intuition is quieter and still and always helpful and supportive. So maybe explaining a little bit more how we can differentiate between those two experiences.
Yeah. And I think that both of those types of experience do have truth and are connected to truth. It's just truth in different forms that connect to our experience differently. So I think all feelings and emotions are super important and super valid. And I think that it's interesting because, sort of like spirit guides, like we want to know so much, like who is our spirit guide and are they an archangel or did I know them before? Like we want to know the story because that allows our brain to understand, like, how seriously do I take you? How do I treat this? What does this say about my spiritual authority that you're my guide? Like, it's not the who that is that important. So I don't want us to get mixed up in this way of like, is this lowercase f or higher case f? Like, what does this mean? It's like a feeling is a feeling and there's value in feeling it and listening to it. And they work together so often and they get to truth. But the difference of uppercase F is that it's never dysregulating. It's never makes you feel bad about yourself. It's never co-creating with the inner villain voice. It's feelings rooted in like power and love and solutions and truth that the clearing of the lowercase f help us get to that. Again, they work in harmony. And I think it's just the brain trying to understand how much value to place on one or the other, which is like counterproductive. And instead, just the more we make time for silence and spaciousness and feeling our feelings and observing what our brain and stories try to do in that space, the more we'll understand. Like, the best way I can say it is that clairsentience, to me, when I'm in it, is like this full body resonance. Like, Claire, when you pull the right card and you just start crying and you feel how supported you are, that's a perfect example of uppercase F. It's just these moments of like, oh, yeah, I'm connected and I feel that. And I feel like I'm open to what next guidance wants to come through. That's uppercase F. And lowercase f clears and heals and brings our truth in the human experience to help make way so we can even experience uppercase F or understand uppercase F. But again, one is not more valuable than the other. Does that make sense?
It does. It really makes sense. And I think it's such a beautiful an important thing to remember because even through this conversation, it's so funny how sneaky it is. It's like I still can feel myself wanting to deny or feel shame around my lower F experiences or feel that they are less valuable or that they're like a nuisance or in the way or childish or immature or out of control. That's a good way to put it, honestly. They feel out of control. But I think that doesn't necessarily mean something negative. Like sometimes we need to rage and stomp our feet and cry. And that is such big information because it's usually about a way that we need to support ourselves deeper. And the fact that we're having such a big emotional experience around it is like a guidepost of like, take a look at this. And I think the almost the take a look at this is that like higher F, higher knowing of like, okay, this pain is a messenger and let's hold it and support it as it lets us show its message of truth and as it lets us connect with ourselves more fully. Like, how can we show up for ourselves with such radical love and unconditional acceptance and support of whatever we're feeling, not just trying to bypass the lower F and get to that feeling of higher F support. It's like, by honoring the lower F and moving with it and through it, that is how we connect to the higher F, I feel like.
Yeah, exactly. Where we're judging our emotional experience, where are we doing that in other areas of life? Where did our parents model that for us? And so it sometimes can be confusing to distill one psychic sense down because they all work in harmony together. So I don't want this to get people too in their head. Like, don't deny whatever experience you're having with your intuition coming in or other clairs feeding it, but just make sure you're connected to feeling and going deeper below the stories being told to the feeling and the felt experience. And so everything is working in harmony. But when we feel our feelings, inevitably knowing comes. And I think just what you were saying, Claire, is so true. Like when you feel those feelings, you will also, even if it's for a micro moment, notice this like feeling of being held or knowing you're supported or feeling like I can pick myself up off the ground and I feel like I know what needs to happen next. That is uppercase F. And we can only get there in this like contrasted way sometimes by feeling lowercase f.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I think it's a good point too. Like, it's all interwoven. It's all interconnected. And I think at the maybe the anchor of it is the feeling experience. So allowing that to be there to rest upon as you explore the rest or as you kind of dance with the fullness of our clairs. I think we so easily want to like compartmentalize parts of ourselves. Like I always joke around when I have neck pain that I'm like, yeah, but it's also stemming from my lower back because it's all connected, as if somehow our body isn't connected to itself. But we really feel that way. And when I was younger, I hit a point where I realized that I was totally disconnected from my body, that my mind was just like existing on top of my body. And yoga, shout out to yoga. And if you're not in a yoga practice, which I feel like probably our whole community is, but yoga and honestly ballet for me has been such an amazing mind body connecting tool. So if you're not doing yoga, I highly recommend it just as a way to connect your mind and your body because we do live kind of in a society where those two things can be so disjointed. And of course, that's cutting you off from the fullness of your experience. So I think just tying that back into what you were saying, nothing exists in isolation in our experience. No Claire is living alone in a separate place from the other Claires. No body part, no feeling experience is cut off from the others. So the more that we can accept that like they're all playing together in this beautiful tapestry that is us, I think the more that we can like feel and experience ourselves more fully.
1,000,000%. And I'm so glad that you brought that up because that connection to our body is such an important part of this conversation. And I just want to say first that when it comes to like upper and lowercase f, which if that doesn't serve you to think of it that way, don't even worry. Just feel your feelings. There can be days where we really feel both, where we're like in nature on a hike and we like feel the beauty and vastness of the universe and we feel that we're where we need to be and we feel so grateful and we feel so connected. And then that same day, a trigger can happen and we can feel shame and triggered and upset. And it's like it's all interwoven, just like we were saying. So just notice those things and like what are the conditions that you're in when you maybe do feel those uppercase F feelings, and how can you maybe put yourself in the right conducive conditions for those experiences sometimes too. And what are the it's like there can be triggers that bring up shame and pain and fear and scarcity, and then there can also be situations, containers, and conditions that help us rise and connect to our higher feelings. So it's all just like learning how to play the instrument of our body in this human experience. And that point of connecting to the body is so important for clairsentience, because our body, like the emotional stuff that's trapped and stored in our body, like it gets our attention through physical symptoms all the time. And it's asking to be listened to. And we're in a world that, just like we disconnect from our feelings, we disconnect from our body so that we can be these machines, cogs, constantly productive. If we're tired, we drink coffee. If we're in pain, we take an Advil. If we are sad, we tell ourselves we're not and keep going. Like we are so disconnected from our body, and those mind body practices that get us back into an embodied state is one of the ways that is so necessary for clairsentience development. I didn't even think about talking about that today because I'm so in my body, but I was like, oh yeah, I used to not be in my body. It was through this practice of like really attuning myself to my physical body that I understood how many messages I was missing for myself about myself.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, it was such a crazy experience to recognize that and realize that I was just like only here. It hadn't even like occurred to me that there was another way of being. But yeah, it's like we are an instrument, we are a full being. And so to think that we would only think of our mind as the important part. I think that's something our society has really done. It values our mind and our intellect and our brain, and it puts that as the most important thing, and it then disregards feeling as like a nuisance or silly or childish. I mean, I really felt that as a human being in this world, where it was like your feelings are in the way and they are a problem, and you feel too much and you got to figure that out. And it's like, what a beautiful experience to come now to this place where I realize that my feeling is my superpower, and that being such a highly tuned vibration of feeling, while it can be challenging to navigate, actually connects me so deeply to the experience of life. And I can't believe for how long I was, trying to deny and shut that down.
1,000,000%. And it's giving patriarchy. And I think that developing clairsentience is an act of rebellion against patriarchy. That it's everything that we've been told to disconnect from, to not see as valuable, and to connect to our feelings is a language that patriarchy tries to sanitize out. And it's also just making me feel like how cis women give birth to children and how they're like, we don't care about that. The body isn't valuable. What are you thinking? What do you believe? What's your mind? What's the progress? It's like, no, the body is this like vessel and this portal, and it's not just for if you can give birth or not, but that's just one example that sticks out to me with the patriarchy. But it's a disconnection from the wisdom of our heart and our feelings and our emotional experience that we all have.
I'm so glad you used that word wisdom, because I actually think it's such a funny disconnect. It's like we think of intelligence and intellect as coming from the mind, but there is such deep wisdom that we gain from the intuitive feeling connection when we open to it. And actually, maybe that wisdom is broader and fuller than our intellect and the, data that we store in our brain. And I think you're so right. It's like a big part of patriarchy is control of the masses, right? So that they can be the cogs in the machine, and that they can be the workers and the mothers that, produce the workers. And that's the machine that patriarchy runs off of. And deep intuitive wisdom and knowing tells us that that is not our purpose, that we are not here to be a cog in a capitalistic machine, but that we're here to feel and experience each other and this beautiful earth and the beautiful act of creation that we both are and that we constantly experience. And so I think the more that we connect to that, the more dangerously powerful we become in the fight against patriarchy, because our inner wisdom opens us to the truth of our experience, which is so much more than we've been told we're here to be.
Yeah. And on the collective level, people who are in tune with their clairsentience are not easy to control. We are like, we need rest, we need this. And then on the collective level, we're like, we're not just going to numb ourselves and keep going to work. We see injustice, we see things happening, and we feel a full body resonance to fight for love, to fight for our neighbors, to show up for community. So I think clairsentience is like such a missing puzzle piece in healing the world and our consciousness. And I think social media and like being so connected to the horrors of what's going on around the world is such a exercise in that, because I think we like want to scroll to avoid feeling our deeper feelings, and we like know that something is out of resonance and that we want to do something, we don't know what, and we're not in the practice of listening to our heart, so we just like stay connected and sometimes numb and scroll and are online, which is like fine and serves a purpose, but it can go like you get the information from social media and then you're like doom scrolling in it and take it past where it's actually serving you. And I think that when you get into like these doom scrolling, I don't know, rabbit holes, it's showing that you're disconnected from your clairsentience, and there's a numbing element to it. And you're disconnected from all of your feelings because you're in that mental merry-go-round of all of that stimuli, and there's deeper emotional processing that needs to happen.
Yeah, for sure. I felt it happening last night where I was like, okay, you've thoroughly looked at all the things on your phone. Are you done avoiding how you're feeling? You all set? It was like, okay, there's nothing else to look at there. Like, can we be here in the moment with what's coming up? And I think it can be so uncomfortable to do that, but there's that beautiful song by I think it's Pink Floyd, Comfortably Numb, and I think that's something to really think about when we're in those doom scrolls. Like we are in an uncomfortable moment, and I think the experience of being a human in this world is uncomfortable, and we grow and expand in that discomfort. So, I think when it becomes overwhelming, like really anchoring into that feeling of your feeling experience is your superpower. And the more that you can deepen into it, we talk about this a lot. Like it has such a beautiful ripple effect. Like your joy, your love, your radical acceptance of yourself and the people around you is such a powerful fight against what we're facing. And it has such a beautiful ripple effect outward when people witness you in your joy and your love and radical self acceptance. So even if you feel like, oh my God, how are we ever going to get out of this situation? That is a tangible thing you can do for yourself and the people around you in any moment.
Here, here. Here, freaking here. I also do want to say there's a level of nervous system healing and clairsentience connection because, I'm a broken record about nervous system healing, and I will mention it on every episode. But it can be really hard to sit in the unknown. And the mind, this is also a big pitfall of intuitive and mediumship development, is that the mind loves stereotypes because it makes us feel in control, and it loves to wrap everything up in a neat bow. It loves to like have a story and be like, and that's the lesson and everything's going to be okay. Neat bow, on to the next. And I feel like clairsentience can just be a little bit more in the unknown, where you're just like, I feel like I'm aligned. I feel like I'm going to be okay. But it sometimes isn't this like neat bow of like, this is the why and this is the how and this is the when and now I'm done. That like sometimes like tarot cards or other things we might do. And sometimes clairsentience does give us that feeling. Sometimes we can get those deeper messages and information. But I also think that we need to resist anything that takes us out of the present moment. And like I said, psychic feeling anchors us into the moment of the sacred space of what we're receiving. And this isn't to say once you open sacred space, whatever comes through it doesn't have value, because it does, and it's coming through for a reason. But just especially when you're on the beginning of your development journey, you're grasping for like stories and neat bows and things that make sense to the mind. And so I think like an element of being able to sit without the answers, without knowing, with feeling like maybe you'll be judged. And there's also an element of clairsentience of like taking your time. Sometimes when we're in these like divining spaces, we're like, where is it? I'm ready. Like, what's the next thing? Or I just gave one message. Now, where's the next one? And we can get into the grasping state. And I think what's so beautiful about leaning into clairsentience is it's just this like wave that you ride and you just ride the feeling. And so, some ways to help develop it, if you have a partner or a friend that you could practice on, do what I call an energy tune in, where all you need to do is, with their permission, you guys can even practice on each other, tune into their energy and watch the way your mind is like, they're going through this right now. So they're probably feeling this. Okay, I'm not feeling anything. What should I be feeling? Like, just watch your mind go buck wild, as I've been saying, because it will. And instead, if you can just practice, and if your mind goes buck wild and that's the whole experience, that gave you some great information about where you're blocking your own, that's even worthwhile on itself. But as you start to tune in, I want you to just close your eyes and put your hand on your heart. And I want you to narrate your feeling experience, because I think where we're so uncomfortable feeling our feelings, we also don't always have the language to talk about our feelings. And that really holds us back as well as intuitives. And so I want you to just put your hand on your heart and be like, okay, right now I'm feeling a little uncomfortable, a little unsure of myself. And I know this is me. I'm going to continue to take some deep breaths. Okay. As I'm starting to feel, I feel this wave of playfulness and openness, and it makes me feel like you're open to this, but maybe a little nervous or hesitant to what's coming through. And as I continue to feel in, my awareness is being brought to this tightness in my belly. And don't feel the pressure to say, and that means this, and this is what it means. Just continue to narrate the feelings. And as I'm feeling this tightness in my belly, it's making me feel a little more like emotional tightness than physical tightness. I feel like my stomach is in knots. I also want to say I feel a little bloated or uncomfortable. Like, just start narrating whatever feelings are coming up. And as I talk about that, now my throat's starting to tighten. And I feel this sense of holding myself back from saying what I want to say. It's like just going into and flowing with whatever feelings are coming up. It doesn't need to make sense, doesn't need to have a rhyme or reason, and just let the partner write everything down or voice record everything down while you're tuning in. And then they do the same for you if they want to. And then at the end, just see what they could take. And it might surprise you. It might surprise you how much you're actually getting clairsentiently, because it's a lot harder to do it for ourselves than it is for other people. And that might be a good exercise to see when you're just plugged into the feeling, when you take your time, when you're not putting pressure on yourself to make it mean something or tie it up in a neat bow or impress somebody with something you couldn't have known. When you're just feeling and narrating the feelings, you can give an amazing reading. Not that that is a reading or it has to be a reading, it's just an exercise, but you can really go deep with that exercise.
That's so cool. I'm definitely going to try that. That's such a great way in. I think that you really talked about in a lot of ways. I'm sure it's harder to do on yourself, but I feel like also could be a valuable way to navigate a feeling experience for yourself. Cause like I can really feel myself. I mean, I'm sure many of us feel this way, but I really struggle to not put meaning on things and jump to these like hard conclusions of like, this happened. So now this is the thing. Like, I can never speak to this person again. And that's how it has to be. Usually that isn't how it goes. I'll calm down and then we'll speak again. But, not needing it to mean anything, not needing to define it. It's like, I'm feeling tightness. I'm feeling deep grief. I'm feeling rage. And just let it kind of flow in those ways without putting the story on it or defining it or giving information around it. And like you said, it is probably an easier jumping point to do it with a friend because it's so easy for all our stories are so alive in us. But I also feel like there's a lot of value to do it for yourself. Like, I think I want to try that next time I need to just like really sit with what's coming up and just really try and anchor into just the visceral experience of what's coming up, the visceral feeling, not what it means, not the story around it, not my conclusion.
Yeah, and you can definitely do it for yourself. Just have like a little voice recorder out and close your eyes and tune into the truth of your heart and just start to narrate your experience of what you're feeling and talk it out. And you're going to get to so much more information that way than the mind trying to understand what that feeling means. So I love that, the idea of doing it for yourself too. I think that's so powerful. And if you guys do it, please let us know how it goes. And a perfect example of this too, I was chatting with my friend Kim, who was part of my old mediumship circle, and she was back at AFC and getting a reading from someone there. And this person, she's like starting to give intuitive development talks at this place near her. She's on the East Coast and she was getting a reading. And this guy's like, yeah, I see, you talking to a group of people and it's not going to sell out. I just want you to know it's like not going to be full, which already, okay, how's that helpful? And also it's gonna be in Washington. I see you in Washington, and it's just gonna yeah, you're not gonna fill stadiums, you're not gonna fill the venue, but it is gonna be important. So I was chatting with her about that, and she was like, "At the time, it's like a learning environment. I was just being polite." I told him, "Okay, thank you," and, like, went to the next practice session without really thinking about it, but at the time, I couldn't take anything he said. She's like, "It ended up that a friend in my neighborhood or someone that she knows is like, 'Would you give a talk at my meditation center?' and this and that." She's like, "Yeah." She like completely forgot about that AFC reading. And it ended up being on Washington Street. And it was also a very small venue that was full, but it was small. And I was like, that's a perfect example of how our mind gets in the way, where we feel like we need to be impressive, say things that we couldn't have known, speak in full sentences. If he actually was plugged into the clairsentience and narrating what he was feeling, he would say, I feel something intimate about this gathering, instead of his mind being like, you're not going to sell it out. And he would have been more accurate that way. If you, without adding to the information, if he just narrated it, I'm seeing the word Washington, I feel that's significant, instead of his mind interpreting it as Washington State, that's not what he got. He got the word Washington. So if he just stayed connected to narrating his exact experience, she would have maybe not been able to understand it at the time, but it would have 100% been accurate when she looked backwards. And the feeling he was getting was small, intimate group. And his mind from an ego place is like, that means it's not sold out and blah, blah, blah. So that to me was a perfect example of what happens when you're not connected to clairsentience and the mind tries to insert meaning that actually isn't there.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And even I would wonder projecting his ideas of her desires onto it. Like, I bet she wants to sell out a stadium, but I'm not feeling that. So I'm warning her, you're not going to sell out a stadium. It's like those were layers. And I mean, we don't know what his experience was inside of his mind and what was going on, but I wonder if that was even something. It's like how much projection was going on versus just like you said, like a clear stream of what was coming through and the feeling around it and not getting too caught up in needing to define it or pin it down or be impressive.
Yeah. And I think our sitter knows, like, especially when you're feeling into things in their current life, like, you might not get every single detail, but what you're sharing, if you just narrate the experience exactly how it's coming through and the feeling exactly how it comes through, they'll be like, I know exactly what you're talking about. But if you are like, I feel this, and this is how that would make me feel about my life and my circumstance, you've lost the plot. You're disconnected.
Yeah. Now you've added other things into the magic stew that aren't a part of her. It's like you've put your imagination, your wants, your needs, your fears in a lot of ways into it. And that's obviously going to cloud up the vision, that cloud up the, information.
Yes, exactly, exactly. At the mediumship church that I went to with my aunt, the pastor or whatever they're called was I say this on every episode, I just need to look up what it's called. He said the medium is the equal sign. We don't add anything from spirit or to the person. We just give exactly what we're getting. And that is scary and that is vulnerable. And everything that we try to add is to protect ourselves in some way. And we don't need that if we're not making it mean something.
Yeah. What if we allowed ourselves to not be right?
Yeah. Okay. Especially while you're practicing. And I think if you're charging money, especially depending on how much money you're charging, like there is a way that, you need evidence and accuracy because people are really trusting you in this space, but they're also running it through their own barometer of what resonates for them. But yeah, while you're practicing, while you're just figuring it out, like why put that pressure on yourself? Because you'll get valuable information even if you weren't correct. You'll see why. And you'll see like sometimes that will happen too, where it's like, oh, I was so getting that. But then I didn't say it. I was scared to say it. Like just the practice of narrating everything and saying everything is going to surprise you so deeply with how much you actually are getting.
And I think just the need to get it right ends up getting in the way. So it's like giving yourself permission to not need to get it right. I think honestly, like opens the gates for you to actually get more accurate information or actually to show up in a more authentic way. Cause the like, I need to get it right thing ends up kind of like, getting in the way of what's really coming through. It's like becomes like a barrier.
The need to get it right takes you out of the present moment. It's like the future praise or dissatisfaction. It's like taking you into the reaction of the sitter instead of actually sitting with the present moment of what's coming through. That's why, I talk to my mentees about this. Like sometimes when you give a really good reading, it can take you out of the power just as much as when you're getting things wrong, because then you're like, okay, I just impressed them. I have to keep doing that. And so it really is all about just being in the present moment, listening without pressure, and that's it.
Yeah, so true. And that's so true about everything we do, you know? It's like being in that present moment and taking the pressure off of ourselves and letting yourself flow with what is. That is the magic recipe for us really living fully, I think.
Yeah, and that's why intuitive development and soul spiritual development and human development is one and the same. It's all the secret recipe. And then one last little suggestion if you want to play is you can get like emotion flashcards and just see which emotion the flashcard is and see if you can conjure that feeling in yourself. Like if you want to just like attune your instrument, and this is like so connected to acting, Claire, like being able to access these emotions. But I think acting helped me develop my clairsentience in a deep way because I was so in the practice of conjuring emotions for my scenes and stuff. And it does help me because then I understand what they're trying to say. And it just helps me be so connected to define shades of emotion and talking about emotion and verbalizing emotion. And then you can also set up your body as like an instrument and a divining tool in itself, which is getting into like a little bit more advanced technique. But if you feel certain areas of your body lighting up and you have a language with your guides about what themes that area means. So, like, if you want to integrate this as a layer into your energy tune ins exercise, first, don't worry about it. But as if you're more developed, you can be like, okay, and now they're bringing my attention to my heart. And I'm not feeling like it's physical heart pain. I'm feeling heaviness and I feel sadness. And it almost feels like there's a level of fatigue. And I know that my heart is connected to the emotions. And even as I talk about this, I feel like I want to talk about your mom. And I feel like she's going through sadness. And I feel, and you can just start going and going and going and stay connected to that feeling. And one thing will lead to another. And then that's how you're like in reading territory, like doing that for other people. But it starts with just the building blocks of narrating what you're feeling.
Yes. And one thing I love that you said like about the feeling cards and like how that applies in acting. Like for me there was this beautiful shift where I realized when I was trying to be in a moment in a scene with big feeling, it was less about generating that feeling and more about opening myself to that universal experience that is that emotion. It's like all of those feelings are so accessible to us. We don't need to make them. We can open to them because they exist within us and tap into that feeling or call that feeling into our being. And I think that that must be happening as well with your readings, with your connection. It's like you're opening yourself to receiving that emotional experience that exists in this plane, whether or not it's alive for you in your own body, it's alive in this world and you can open to it and connect to it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. What just clicked into place for me is the comparison between this work and acting because it's just us with us. It's like the actor is you with the character and the story, which is intangible. And we're here with spirit, which is intangible. And there's so many overlaps. And it's so true. And like sometimes people come to you for readings and they are going through intense stuff. And it's not up to us to have the answers. It's up to us to open to the answers that are already existing and want to come through to support them. When we take pressure off of ourselves in these containers and just allow flow, something so much more beautiful than we could create with our mind already exists and comes through us. So I love that so much.
Yeah, it's really cool the parallels. And I mean, ultimately, because it's just about being a human and having a human experience. And I think that's what connecting to our clairsentience, connecting to all our psychic senses is about being a human, having a human experience and really being in tune with that experience, not shutting it down, not shoving it aside, not talking ourselves out of it, but really being in it, good and bad. Mandy and I say farts and all, it's like the good and the bad is the tapestry. And we can embrace and be alive in all of it. We're strong enough, and it helps us be even stronger to do that.
So beautiful. And that really is true self love, holding ourselves through all of it, the tapestry, and not denying a part of it. So, this conversation's been so beautiful. I really hope that you guys feel a little more connected to your clairsentience and inspired to practice it in these ways as well. And let us know how it goes. So, let's transition to sitting with spirit. Before we get into sitting with spirit today, which is the part of the podcast where I sit with our angels, our guides, our loved ones in the spirit world and give them messages that most want to come through, I firstly want to say that if you have been waiting on an email for booking a reading for me, the email address is scheduling@angelsandamethyst.com. Or if you haven't been getting emails about healing the spirit wound or other offerings that I have, and you'd like to be informed of my work and what I'm sharing, please make sure that you check your spam folder for emails coming from scheduling@angelsandamethyst.com and Taylor@angelsandamethyst.com. And please mark them as not spam if you would like to be connected to me. And for that reason, a lot of people are not seeing their emails coming from us to say that you guys are up on the list to get a reading. So make sure to check your spam if you've been waiting. And if you are not on the wait list, it is a good time to join the wait list because I think the wait time is down significantly for that reason of our emails going to spam. So if you're listening to this podcast, then you're in the know of my community. And I wanted to give you guys that heads up that if you've been thinking about getting a reading, now is a good time to join. The other thing I want to say before we get into the messages for the week is that this sitting with spirit is a little heavy. I want to issue a trigger warning for essay content. And I just want to say that sometimes it's intense to be called to speak about such intense things. And I'm doing so with the most humility, love, and presence that I can. So, without further ado, getting into the messages for the week, I just want to say at the time of recording, there's so much intensity in the collective, and there's so much happening with this ancient matriarchal rage being lit up in so many of us. And the first message that I feel called to share right now is when our witch wound is flaring. The witch wound is the part of the collective wound that feminine energy carries, connected to being powerful, heard, seen, inconvenient to the systems that be, outside of the protection of masculine energy, like all of these things that from hundreds of years, the witch trials and the hunting of successful women or women on property that people wanted, or taking us out of medical school, the like introduction of all of these religions that disempower women, it's all interconnected. And right now feels like, for obvious reasons, it's a moment where our witch wound is being flared. And I think that this time period is really showing me how connected our sexual power also is to the witch wound. And I think the witch is so demonized because she has no problem having desires. She has no problem, there's all of these images of like witches with phallic broomsticks and all of these things, and like sex and pleasure and desire and power has been so demonized for women. And I feel like all of this moment with the Epstein files and what's happening to women around the world and all of these things are really triggering the healing of the witch wound on a deeper level so that we can birth a new world together. And the message that I got is when our witch wound flares, it shows that we're on the right path towards reclamation. When our witch wound feels so uncomfortable, it shows that we are reclaiming our power. We are rejoining with a piece of us that has been taken. We are taking our power back. We are moving through the fear and the witch wound activation. And through doing that, we are fast tracking, reconnecting with our inner witch. And this is so important because I feel like women, of course, but everyone, hopefully, should be deconstructing on an even deeper level. And I feel like this moment is inviting us to do just that. And deconstruction work always triggers the witch wound. Even talking about some of these things that I'm talking about on the podcast is triggering my witch wound. And I run towards that trigger to reclaim my power and to no longer give it away to the trigger. And I think triggers are an invitation to sink or rise, as my aunt says. And I almost see triggers like bad ex-boyfriends, and you can just break up with them, no longer giving your power to them. And of course, it's complicated and there's way more nuance to it than just that. But that is how I feel about triggers. And so as I was getting this message about this, it makes me emotional. As I was feeling into this message about the witch wound and the collective psyche of women, I was getting this deep primal rage feeling from the spirit world. And I was feeling all of these women who have been wronged, who have been hurt, who had been sexually abused. And I got the message that through us healing our witch wound, demanding a more just world, calling out these acts, that by us doing that, we are being the voices for the women that never were heard, that never got their retribution or justice, for the generations that never could ring the alarm bells, had to suffer in silence. And I know that still happens in this day and age. And I think it's up to all of us and our allies to no longer let the perpetrators be comfortable in the silence. As soon as we see something, we have to say something. And I feel this deep, primal, feminine grief and rage being activated. And it makes me emotional because I, like every woman I know, have been sexually assaulted. And I think that this moment is activating a deeper invitation for us to sit with all of the betrayal and lack of safety and triggers and everything that is connected to that, because no woman that I know is absolved of some sort of inappropriate sexual connection with a man. And I feel like us processing this, I mean, this trauma lives in the collective of women around the world. It's why we don't go out at night by ourselves. It's why we dress in baggy clothes to not get attention. It's another version of how we dim our light, is just the threat of sexual violence. And it's a very real threat. And I feel like we're being called to feel this rage and this grief in a deeper way. And I know for my experience, clearly this emotion coming up shows that there's deeper grief to be felt on my end for myself and the collective. My heart breaks for everything that's happening right now. And I feel like us meeting this grief and this rage and no longer quieting it or pretending it doesn't exist or editing it out of our story. And maybe some of us need professionals in the space to help us process this. But I feel like us sitting with this discomfort head on is going to activate our magic, help us return to our inner witch, get clear on what we want to say in these times and how we can be of service. And I really feel like a whole new layer of shame, pain, anger, anger for our sisters is coming up. And it feels so heightened right now. And I also think it's the necessary feelings and emotions that are going to help us shift the power paradigm and come back to a world that takes care of us, that cherishes us, that protects us. And it starts with us doing that for us and us calling it out for other women. And it just feels so, so deep to me. And I was not expecting to get emotional sharing this today. But truly, 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 and I know that I'm only really, really touching the surface of what I want to say about this, because I think I could devote a whole season of Magic Hour to these conversations. But I just want to say to everybody listening that I see your strength, and your healing work is so deep for the souls that never had the chance to even admit that something happened. And you are creating ripple effects through your healing journey, through reclaiming your power and through reconnecting to your magic and the spirit world, and all of the women who came before you that didn't have a chance to use their voice or heal are cheering you on and supporting us, and you can call on them in these times. So, getting into the angel messages for the week, I feel a lot of solar plexus activations right now. The solar plexus is in the stomach, and it's tied to life purpose, identity, confidence, personal power, and inner child. In my opinion, it's connected to inner child. Everybody kind of has different views on that. And I feel like there is this sense of the crown chakra, like focusing on doom and gloom. It feels like it's really easy to get in our head. It feels like it's really easy to get locked into scrolling and checking the news. It feels like it's just really easy to go into existential dread about the future and about how things will never change. And I feel like it's our job to come back to our physical body, to come back to a grounded place where we can engage in deep heart listening. I believe that the crown chakra in this moment is exposing deeper shadows that are blocking us from expressing our full light, from stepping into our power, and from really doing what we came here to do in this life as a soul. So it feels like a really, really powerful moment. And then the energy this week just also feels very layered. It feels like we are navigating such energetically layered times and really intense times. And I see a lot of people at crossroads moments. I feel a lot of people in pressure cooker moments. It feels like there's a lot of layers. And I saw rainbow as a sign from our angels this week. And I was so grateful to see this because rainbow is so tied to like the rainbow at the end of the storm, beautiful new beginnings, new chapters, and sort of just like angelic support. And when I see rainbow, there's also another message of not only focusing on one color, remembering all the colors and the richness. And if you're hitting the same wall or focusing on the same thing, finding a more robust connection with everything that is available to you, finding variety is another part of my connection to rainbow. And so as I was tuning in and pulled a card for the week, I saw sinking ships as I was pulling the card. And it gave me this feeling of like, it might not seem like it, but a lot of power structures and a lot of ships right now that were once so great are sinking. And we're starting to like notice some water on the deck, and some people are jumping off, and some people are pretending there isn't water on the deck. And it might not be in the moment where it's really obvious right now, but I feel this on the collective and the individual, that things that need to end are sinking, and it's being made very clear to us what needs to end and what needs to go. And there's this feeling of those of us that are like aware and listening and tapped in and in our power. We have our life vest, we have our rowboat, we're ready to get off the sinking ship. And the work that we've been doing is so important for this moment. And in our interpersonal life, you might notice like jobs, relationships, dynamics, living situations, thoughts that are the sinking ships that are just not working anymore. And I feel like we are in this moment where we really need new energetic strategies for the times that we're going into. And some of our old like business models or ways that we would make money or ways that we used to meet our needs like might not work anymore. And that's okay. Part of the message is like ask new energetic strategies or looking in different places or tuning back inward to what actually feels good to you right now. And so, as I continued to tune in, I felt like for some of us, there is a lot of scarcity coming up, a lot of scarcity mindset this week. And I felt like a lot of us might be feeling blocked or burnt out or having money problems or feeling like you don't have enough resources. And it felt really easy to get stuck in your mind and go in circles about it and kind of burn yourself out in the process. And so the message that I got here is don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to connect with a like community and other people that might be able to give you a piece of advice or help you or have gone through it themselves. And don't be afraid to shift energetic strategies or try new things, but just staring and focusing on the problem is keeping you out of present moment growth. So even if it's just sitting with the discomfort, sitting with the feeling of burnout, sitting with the shame coming up about what isn't working or what isn't happening is so much more powerful than just ruminating on the problem, being present with whatever is coming up to be detangled and knowing that no energy lasts forever, that this is not going to last forever, that you are working your way through it and to be kind to yourself and to give yourself grace. So I know that the reading for this week is like a little bit heavier, and I just want to give this gentle reminder that if you have really big plans or important things happening this week, don't let this make you think that the week is going to be a total failure or that magic and light can't happen as well. We're navigating really collectively intense times, and these are always the messages that most need to be heard. So it doesn't mean that there can't be magic or joy or love, celebration, creation, success, and abundance this week. But the messages shared are what the community members that really need it, that's what comes through. So I just want you to know that don't get in your head about this. So this gets really deep again, and this is where the trigger warning comes in again, because it was really interesting. When I was sitting in the power, I was connecting with a man in spirit who essayed people while he was here. And it was a really interesting experience for me because even though as a medium, I know the truth of spirit being all love, no evil spirits, just people who forgot their spirit. And still, the very human part of me was like, I don't want to talk to you. Even though I know that's not the story of who that soul is in spirit, I don't even think spirit has a gender. It's a very biological function to have a gender. And so I think that it was really interesting to watch the human in me struggle with even connecting with an aspect of spirit that was a predator while they were here. And so I put my discomfort aside. I trusted spirit. I opened up and I knew that this was coming up for a reason. So I'm going to share what I got. And it was like a little bit of an eye roll too. I was trying not to judge the spirit I was connecting with, and I was trying not to judge the process, but I was like, I'd much rather hear from like survivors and women and what they learned. But okay, I guess I can connect with this guy. So yeah, my human and my ego is very much resistant to this connection today, but I really hope that it at least helps somebody. So I connected with a man on the other side. He felt older to me. He said he was from an older generation. He felt really creepy to me. It feels like he didn't respect women's boundaries. I felt like there was something very voyeuristic about him. And I didn't really want to dwell on what he did, but just you understand from the picture that I'm painting. He told me that he was completely disconnected from who he was. He was like so disconnected from his heart, his emotions. It feels like he had so many protectors and layers over his heart that it kept him from experiencing emotions. It was like this interesting shadowy numbness, is the best way I could say it. And he said, because I was so completely disconnected from who I was, he got off on making other people feel things. So that was a really interesting, but I was like, again, I could have lived without this. But again, if this helps anybody in any way, I hope it does. So there's just this feeling from him of like controlling other people's reactions, making them uncomfortable. It's like that's how he felt something. He was so detached from processing his own pain and shame and childhood trauma. And it feels like there was just this sense of him being so not even aware that that was something he needed to do. It's like he wasn't even aware that there were deeper layers to him. His whole way that he felt was by causing reactions from other people and then that bringing feeling to him. It was really an interesting feeling. And he was saying that sex and sexual connection was the only type of pleasure that his ego story let him indulge in. There was so much shadowy stuff with masculine energy that he was showing me around disconnection from themselves, disconnection from their heart, disconnection from just their true authentic desires, and like going down these quote unquote societal roads of accepting pleasure. And so he also said that he couldn't process his own shame, so he tried to feed off and inflict shame on others. And I did feel like an apology from this person. And it's not that that really matters. Again, my ego's coming in here. But he was basically saying, and this part was like so disgusting to me. He was saying that when women liberate themselves sexually, when we take out the shame and the stigma and reclaim our like goddess energy, our sexual power, and we deconstruct that element of the witch wound, for people like him, it takes out the emotional charge that they get around making us feel shame. And so I feel like this message isn't about men at all. It's actually about women and how part of the deep work that we're being called to do right now is sexual liberation. And I know that there have been so many amazing people doing this work for a long time. And maybe this is something we can get into a little deeper on Magic Hour because I think it's really important. When we reclaim our sexual power, it takes the charge away when we don't feel shame. It takes a little bit of the charge away from these predatory, disgusting men. I think that we are in this moment where we need to call things out, where we need public shaming for anybody that tries to make women feel ashamed of their bodies and sex. I think it goes so deep. And again, I can barely scratch the surface right now. But I think it's really interesting to me that of all people I could connect with in spirit today, this person came through, or this aspect of spirit had a message to share. And I just see all of us women holding hands and really saying enough is enough and really calling things out and not letting anything slide. And our voices are so much stronger together. And I really feel like this is a big part of the change in consciousness. And it goes so deep with all the patriarchal religions, with like shame around our periods. Like there's just so much. It goes so, so deep. Like, again, I can only really skim the surface here. But I feel like there is just this invitation for like us to be more liberated, free, and decenter the male gaze in an even more powerful way. And I think that's a big invitation of these times. So in some ways, this feels way too deep and big to even talk about. And I'm not an expert in these spaces, but I definitely plan and I'm open to having more nuanced conversations with people that are. And I can just share what's coming through for me to share. And I think sometimes it's my nature to want to like wrap things up in a neat bow and have the answer for everything and make people feel immediately better. And I think while some of these messages might help in some ways, I think we're living in times where we have to feel safe enough for it not to be wrapped up in a neat bow or feel immediately better. We're wading through really deep energetic currents. And so I'm going to continue to tune in and share what I'm getting. I know that this was a deeper sitting with spirit this week, but I'm sending you all so, so much love. And we need to continue to just battle shame with a baseball bat. It's an act of resistance to be in our juiciness, our pleasure, our desires, and have absolutely not 1 ounce of shame around it. And I really hope that together we can build a safer world for every single one of us, every single one of us. So much love, and see you next week. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Magic Hour Podcast. We are so happy you're here. I absolutely love to connect with you all on Instagram at angels_and_amethyst. I love to get your thoughts on each episode, and I get so excited to get your emails to contact@magichourpod.com. Make sure you're subscribing to Magic Hour so you never miss a new episode in your inbox. We have so many amazing guests right around the corner as always. Please make sure to send your 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to contact@magichourpod.com, and we'll enter you into an angel reading giveaway with me, which is just my favorite thing, to get to connect with the Hummingbird community in that way. You get a bonus entry if you also send a screenshot of your YouTube subscription, and also a screenshot of sharing us on your story and tagging us at Magic Hour Podcast on Instagram. The next giveaway will happen when we hit 288 5-star reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We so appreciate you sharing the podcast with other magical people, and it really helps us keep this project alive. To learn more about me, my work, to book a reading with me, to take a workshop, please visit angelsandamethyst.com. And remember, you are magic.